Today, we're going to talk about the do's and don'ts for how to carry your handle back to the front end of the rowing stroke after the finish. In a recent video, we talked about one of the most common mistakes made in rowing, which is just after the finish of the rowing stroke, as the arms are coming out, the athlete doesn't quite get the body forward before the knees start to rise, and so the handle sometimes hits the knees or is slightly ahead of the knees, but the body is back, and there's a lot of effort necessary to come into the front end of the stroke, where the athlete is pulling themselves up the slide, lunging into the front end. And we want to avoid that, and the way that we want to avoid that is making sure that the arms come out, body comes forward, and then we roll. So in that previous video, we spent a lot of time with the arms away pause and also the body forward pause. If you haven't seen that video, I encourage you to watch it. Now, from that video, there was a comment that was made by one of the athletes who watches the channel, and their statement was that their focus after the finish of the stroke is to allow the handle to come down to the legs as they come forward, which thereby ensures that the legs don't pop up until the handle is in front of the knees. And so their stroke, as I imagine it as they've explained it, looks a lot like this. And although I can see the reasoning behind it, and I can see how this works for that athlete, I did caution them in my response that they would want to make sure that that movement that they are creating with the handle is not a movement that's followed by the body. And what I mean by that is that when you come to the finish, if the handle comes down and comes past the knees, you want to make sure that that action is just happening in the arms and the shoulders, and that when you tilt forward, the body is not following the arc of the handle, so that we don't get a stroke that looks like this, where we're rocking into and out of the front end of the rowing stroke. So although rowing in this manner, allowing the handle to come down to the legs, will help in one regard, keeping the knees down, it may not help in another regard if our body follows the handle down and then back up through the front end of the rowing stroke. It can lead to a lift out of the front end. It can lead to a lunge at the front end. Now, the likelihood is the athlete who made the comment knows all of this and is rowing properly, but I just wanted to share that little caveat with you. But the question still remains, how much, if any, movement down of the handle after the finish is necessary on the rowing machine? And the answer is none. But just because it doesn't require a push of the handle down doesn't mean there's some benefit in doing so. But let me step back. Why would there be a discussion on a tap down of the handle at the finish to begin with? Well, this rowing machine originally, decades ago, was built for the rowing community, those who are in boats on the water. And those athletes have an oar which is attached to a blade. So when they drive the blade through the water and they finish in a nice strong finish position holding that blade into the water, they then have to extract the blade. And the extraction of the blade requires a tap down at the finish to extract that blade, to then carry that blade height forward, to then allow the blade to drop at the front end. So there is a little bit of movement with the handle from the back end, where there's this downward movement at the back end to extract a blade. So it's really built into all on-water rowers in their rowing stroke on the machine that they would have some tap down. Now, the rowing machine does not have an oar handle attached to it, or more appropriately, an oar handle attached to a blade, so you don't need as much, if any, movement around the back end. But what could the potential benefits be? Let's start by talking about the potential pitfalls of either doing no tap down and or pressing up off of the finish. And so no tap down suggests that the handle just comes straight in and out. And as you can see, when I do that straight in and out, there's just a little bit of tension in my shoulders here to maintain that completely straight in, straight out motion. And then we tilt in and roll forward. And if my hands are straight out, arms are straight out, and there's a little bit of rise here, there can be the potential that as I tilt forward, that rise expands, my shoulder starts to come up towards my ears, and I arrive at the front end in this turtle shell position with my shoulders up towards my ears, and it's not the strongest position to push from. The other thing that can happen is an athlete, especially an athlete who's behind their knees with the handle, they can come to the finish and they can lift the handle over the knees. And generally what happens with that, as you probably just saw, is there's a lift followed by a dive. And so these strokes, we want to clear the knees, and so there's this lift and dive. And when it comes to the front end of the rowing stroke, if we arrive at the front end and our last motion on the recovery is down, the first motion on the drive will be up. Meaning we pitch forward with the body and then we initiate with a back opening, as opposed to arriving in a level position and initiating the drive with the legs and core and then opening back against it. So both of these things, either pressing straight out and allowing the shoulders to rise as we tilt forward, and or being behind the stroke and coming over the knees to then dive into the front end, are not beneficial. So going back to where we started, although it is not specifically necessary to allow the handle to come down off of the finish, to press down off of the finish of the rowing stroke on the rowing machine, it can still be beneficial. And the most beneficial thing that it can do is keep the shoulders down and relaxed. And so as we come to the finish of the stroke, we're here in this strong position with even just a little push down. You can see how my shoulders settle even that little bit more. So the shoulders start to just settle and they stay down as I come forward and I arrive in this position, chest up, chest forward, shoulders down, lats connected, and a good strong position to press from. So just by having a little bit of tap down at the finish of the stroke, we can arrive at the front end of the stroke with more relaxed shoulders, lower in socket, connected to the lats, and thus creating a greater hang off the front end of the rowing stroke. We really want to make sure it's just a slight tap down, just enough to relax the shoulders. So we finish, the shoulders start to relax, arms come out, body comes forward, shoulders are down and relaxed, and we can be horizontal into and out of the front end of the rowing stroke. So we finish, slight release and tap down, and float through the front end, sitting up, sitting forward, keeping those shoulders relaxed, keeping the lats engaged, pressing and moving along. And I encourage a slight movement down because that is all that is necessary to relax the shoulders. And I caution you against too much of a movement down unless you can be confident that when you bring that handle nice and low, that you allow the hands to stay down, but you don't follow it with the body. If you're finding yourself tapping down and coming down with the handles and then up at the front end, that's too excessive of a tap down at the finish of the rowing stroke. So we finish, slight tap, and move, as opposed to finish, follow the handle down, follow the handle up at the front end. So the next time you're on the machine, take stock of how you are moving off the finish of the rowing stroke. Make sure, first and foremost, you have a good finish position, that you're in that 1 o'clock recline, that you are strong in the core, that you have relaxed shoulders, that the handle is at the top of the rib cage, base of the sternum. So you're in this very strong position, elbows back and through. This is strong. Once you've ensured that you have that strong position, then really think about how you're moving off of that position. Are you starting to come forward and lift the handle to make sure you clear the knees? Are you allowing the handle to come so low that your body's following it into and out of the front end? Are you just going straight out? And as you come forward, your body continues to round and the shoulders come up to the ears. Or are you finishing nice and strong, little bit of a tap down just to make sure those shoulders are low and the lats are connected, so when the arms come out and body comes forward, you arrive in that great position to be able to take the catch, to hang off the handle, to press and send along. If you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, share it with your teammates and friends, and know there'll be even more rowing content coming to you soon.